Hello folks, back again, episode 8, season 4. We're going to call this one Damage Done.
And the damage was certainly done. We are just a few days removed from a World Series win. And how lucky are we that we actually get to be doing this show and celebrating a World Championship at the same time.
When we left off with our last show, we had just finished 2 games of the Yankees, having lost one, and we've made some rather, I won't say negative, but tentative statements about, well, it might be too bad if you win 108 games in the season and then get blown out in the playoffs. Well, we didn't get blown out.
No, it didn't happen at all. In fact, they went 11-3 in the playoffs.
And so what happened was, after we left off with you, if you have been following carefully, the next day we beat the Yankees 16-1.
Yes, a pretty emphatic statement after the loss.
And so that was the critical moment of that series. Then Houston, which was probably the pre-season, pre-playoffs.
Oh, absolutely.
To win.
Absolutely.
The very first thing that happened was the overruled home run that Mookie got interfered with, maybe, because the security guard stood in front of the camera.
Right, so they didn't know. And you know, it was a judgment call, and hey, what would a playoff series be without Joe West being in the middle of all the umpiring decisions? I mean, that's a given at this point.
And then they went into the last series, and they were down 2-1. They're up 2-1, but they're behind. What was it?
4-0.
4-0
in the 7th inning.
And all of a sudden, they take out the starting pitcher, and we get 9 runs.
9 runs off their
bullpen.
bullpen.
Turns that around.
So we'll analyze all that, because hopefully you were watching, and we'll get into how you were up watching late. If you were watching, we'll get into that later on.
So in any case, we just won our 4th World Series in the last 15 years.
4 and 15
4
years.
and 15 years.
After 86 years of 0, nothing. And how lucky are we 4 times in 15 years? I mean, not many teams can say that, especially baseball, where it's very, very tough to have a consistent, no, I wouldn't say dynasty, but to win year in and year out like that is incredibly difficult.
Especially as so many players turn over every year. Since free agency has come in, it's hard to keep the core of the team together for a long time.
It sure is. And of course, you run the risk, like when the Phillies won a decade ago. They won, and they immediately re-signed all those guys to long-term contracts. Well, within 3 years, they were old and couldn't play anymore, and then the Phillies were terrible. So you have to, even when you win, you have to strike that balance between, okay, who do we keep for the core and who's expendable? And it's a tough thing to do, because you get sentimental. You really do. When you win a World Series, the easy thing to say is, bring everybody back. Bring everybody back.
We like them all.
Yeah, we like them all. Well, that's not really feasible the way today's baseball market is. So you have to make some tough decisions, unfortunately.
And they make a tough decision to sign somebody for 10 years, and he gets hurt his 2nd year, and you end up paying for 8 more years.
Oh, Albert Pujols.
How many examples of that?
A-Rod. So when you're making these long-term deals because of the players' union and agents and the money the way it is, you're essentially, I think this is how they went into it with Price. You're paying for the front half of the contract.
Yeah.
You sign a guy for 7 years, you're sort of going to expect that a year or two at the end is not going to be what the rest of the career is. But if you win a World Championship, it's worth it.
Well, essentially, you're always playing a player for what he's done in the past.
Right.
You're paying for his past work.
Right, not his future work.
His future work.
Sure.
Because the kids that were playing in this series, guys like Devers at 22 years old, is making nothing.
Right.
They're making pocket change.
Nathan Eovaldi makes $2 million. Look what he did.
So what's going to happen is, if Devers ends up having a great career, he'll be paid for what he did up to that
point. Sure.
That hope he maintained it. They just re-signed Kershaw for $32 million. He's being paid for what he's done.
For what he's done.
He's a Hall of Fame pitcher, so let's hope he can hang on.
Hang on for another 3 years while we sign, which actually he did pretty well this year if you look at his numbers. And you can always make that argument, like people were arguing with Price. is any player worth $30 million a year? Which you can make that argument, especially a pitcher is not, but that's what the market value is.
It might be for a year.
For a year, yes. But not long term. So that's sort of something to keep in mind. But we're going to talk about the championship right now. It's fresh in everyone's mind. We're celebrating.
I think before we do that, I hate to end the show on a negative, Jay.
Oh, we'll start.
I hate to end the show on a negative. So, if you recall last week, we decided to have a part of the show called "Here's Something I Don't Understand."
And there are a couple things we don't understand, not being negative, but things we'd like to have explained to us further because we really don't understand them.
Number one, and this has been paramount in my mind for about 25 years, pitchers shouldn't bat under any circumstances.
No.
Interleague play should not mean pitchers have to bat. We're not being old-fashioned. We're being new-fashioned.
Yes.
Anybody who wants the pitchers to bat should go back and watch Ty Cobb and Babe Ruth playing.
And it's not a matter of their pitchers hit better than our pitchers. It's a matter of roster construction. Like we said, during the World Series, the Sox had to make a decision to sit either Bradley or Benintendi. Well, that's not fair. You've gone the whole season with your roster constructed this way, and all of a sudden you have to sit one of your best guys, and that's such an advantage for the National League, because the American League roster is not built that way.
You emasculate your whole lineup.
Of course you do.
And when the National League plays the American League, they add a DH.
Right.
So actually, when they play in our park, they're strengthened.
Of course they are. And that was part of the reason why there was that marathon 18-inning game. The Sox don't have a roster constructed for a National League park like that. So it was essentially a Fort Myers lineup they had. It was a spring training lineup they rolled out for the last 7 or 8 innings of that game. The roster isn't built that way, and you shouldn't penalize a team who's gone the whole season up until that point and say,
you can't play. Fair for the poor pitchers to have to bat who haven't batted all year.
Of course it's not.
One prime example. When Erod came into the game, the pitchers were pretty much instructed, just don't swing. Just don't hit into a double play. Well, Erod comes up and gets hit right in the shoulder by a pitch.
He was the first pitcher in 50 years to get hit by a pitch in the playoffs.
He didn't know what to do. He sort of stood there. Does that mean I'm going to have to go down to first base? He sort of walked down to first, rubbing his shoulder. It wasn't his pitching shoulder. And then when he gets on base, he's standing on the bag without taking a lead. The next batter up hits a ground ball, and he's supposed to run down and take out the second baseman.
And he just went right into the
peeled off or right into the dugout. It's almost comic.
It really was. But
that wasn't fair.
No, and the thing is, my way of looking at this, not just as a Red Sox fan, but baseball as a whole. If you're trying to get fans to watch the game, the World Series is supposed to be the best of the best. I want the best product on the field that I can market to an audience. That is not the best thing to market. Double switches and pitchers hitting is not what casual fans or even people watching for the first time want to see. They don't care about that. It's not entertaining. They want to see offense.
And the double switch is just a way of using pinch hitters for the pitcher.
Right. Well, you're working around an automatic out in the lineup. Yeah. And that, to me, is not interesting. I'm sorry, it's not. It's not. Give me the DH.
They make a big deal about Baumgartner can hit pretty well and Kershaw can hit pretty well. Well, he was overmatched in all 3 of his at-bats.
Yeah, sure. And guess what? Those are 2 guys in all of the National League, which, and I think I said this before too, there are only 2 leagues in the entire world where the pitchers hit. The National League, and there's a league in Japan. So if you're taking this attitude of, I'm a purist, well, the rest of the world has left you behind. I'm sorry. Right. You need to get with the times.
Baseball, like any other thing, grows. There's been some changes.
Of course.
Changes in all the sports.
Of course. Like I was saying, okay, when basketball instituted the 3-point line, I'm sure purists complained. Or I remember this one. This was in my lifetime when they added the 2-point conversion to football in the professional. Purists complained. Is anyone complaining now? No. People are over it. They're done with it.
In the World Series, pitchers were 0 for 13 with 6 Ks. That's exciting, right?
Yeah, that's stellar. That's scintillating stuff to watch right there. Let me tell you.
Let's change. At least, if nothing else, if the National League wants to play old-fashioned ball, go ahead and do it. But when the World Series comes around, pitchers should not bat.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Absolutely. Okay. 100%.
And the other thing is, I know TV rules the roost in baseball, but starting times of 8:30 for every single game removes the games from kids.
Right. And
They say that over and over again. Kids can't follow baseball.
And we've talked about before, baseball has a big marketing problem. The median age of a baseball fan is now in the 50s.
That's right.
So what happens when those 50-year-olds are in their 70s in 20 years? There is no way right now that baseball is able to market itself to a young audience. Putting games at 8:30, guess what? The kids can't watch.
Can't watch.
And the adults can't watch.
Right, that's right.
If you noticed, I took off a little weight because I'm going to the gym, because I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning going to the gym. Do you think I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning the last 3 weeks? No, because I was up till midnight, 1 o'clock watching these games because they went so late. And I'm not complaining, I'll take the pounds back off, but still, when you have people who have to get up for work the next morning at 5, 6 a.m., do you think they're going to stay up till midnight or 1 to watch a game? I mean, you have diehard lunatics like us, but do you think the casual fan is going to do that? Of course not. Of course not.
Some of the bars closed before the game.
Right, right. Well, the 18-inning game ended at 3:15 in the morning. Now, I was awake, as you were. We might have been the only ones who watched every game.
Even the West Coast went to sleep.
Yeah, right. Even Rob Lowe in the stands was falling asleep at Dodger Stadium because they showed him all game. But that is, if you're trying to market a game, especially to kids and casual fans, how on earth is ending a game at 3:15 in the morning worth it? How does that work? I mean, it was a terrific game to watch, but good Lord.
Well, it wouldn't have been nice if it started at 2 and ended at 9.
Yes, that would have been perfect.
On the West Coast, it still would have ended at supper time.
Sure. Well, especially on a weekend. This is what I don't understand. Here's something I don't understand.
Right.
An 8 o'clock game on Saturday or Sunday is pointless. It's the weekend. You should have it in a time where everyone can watch it. It started at 5 o'clock East Coast time, and who cares if you run into football? It's the World Series. Football can move its...
I don't know.
Yeah,
football owns it.
Football owns they own Sunday, but I don't know. That's something we don't understand, and I get the argument that, okay, Dodgers fans are on the West Coast, they shouldn't have to watch it during work or whatever, but...
Why not?
Come on.
They have phones.
They have phones, and you know what? Baseball's biggest audience is the East Coast. And I'm sorry, majority rules. There's maybe with the electoral college rules, for baseball.
Well, in the early rounds of the playoffs, there were some games that started early.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
it was always the least interesting.
Oh, well, the Astros complained because they said in the first round they had all afternoon games. They said, we're the defending champs. Why aren't we getting primetime coverage?
Well,
so they complained.
Red Sox, Yankees, Dodgers. That's the team.
Those are always. Red Sox, it's the same thing with the Red Sox, Yankees. They're always the Fox game on Saturday. They're always the Sunday night ESPN game. Because those are the big names they're trying to market.
No, the Brewers had a great team. You think they're going to get prime time?
Of course not. Of course not. Of course not. And they were a fun team to watch. That's a perfect case. That's a good young team.
And there's a lot of bars there.
A lot of bars sure are. No parades, but definitely some bars. And that's a great young team that you can market to baseball, casual baseball fans and kids, but they said because it's Milwaukee, we're not going to put them in prime time.
Someone like Christian Yelich is one of the most exciting players.
Yelich was fantastic. I mean, we'll talk about an entertaining guy to watch. And Hader coming out of the bullpen for 3 innings and throwing 100 miles an hour. I've watched them all the time.
Right.
But baseball doesn't see it that way.
And it's football. Football on weekends. Football is king.
It is.
College football is on 9 channels at once.
Oh, and they start at noon and go till about midnight.
That's
It's all day that you can watch college football. Excuse me, allergies.
So I don't think that's going to get changed.
So
that's it. Those are 2 things we don't understand.
So before we get into the analysis of the playoffs, we do have a trivia question about the playoffs. So if you were paying attention, you might be able to figure this one out.
We'll have a lot to say about how well the bullpen did. Bullpen was remarkable, considering it was not rated as one of the top bullpens at all. In fact, I think they rated it 7th of the 18.
It was something like that, yes.
Well, our question is, the Red Sox used 11 players in the playoffs in relief. Who was the only one of those 11 that allowed no earned runs?
It was the only pitcher who went all of the playoffs.
Bullpen was fantastic, but only one of them allowed no earned runs.
Yep. So ponder that one while we talk about the playoffs. So diving in first, as we said last time we talked to you, the Yankee series was just starting, and we're sort of tentatively saying, okay, well, this is sort of going to be an even series. Well, it turned out that all three series were pretty much blowouts.
Right.
But like any good team, it was a true team effort.
Right.
There were so many people, and perfect example, think back to the 2004 team. This was the same way. They wouldn't have won if everyone hadn't contributed. It wasn't just the stars. It wasn't an ace pitcher that carried everyone. Every single player on the roster contributed at some point.
So what we've done is pick out 10 players, and it does not include 2 or 3 of the stars that you think would carry the team.
Sure, you're right.
And talk about their signature moment in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's funny when you talk about a small sample size of a 4 or 5 game series. Funny things happen.
Right.
And players get hot for 4 or 5 games, and all of a sudden the player is an MVP. So
we took 10 players in ascending
order.
And we'll say a few words about them. Number 10, and you might think he would be much higher up, J.D. Martinez. J.D. Martinez had a fine series.
He did.
He's the only one to hit 300. He had 15 hits. But there was only one place where what he did was remarkable, and that was game number 1.
Game 1. The Yankees had mulled over who they were going to start against the Red Sox, and in fact, in the wild card game, it even influenced that, because they wanted J.A. Happ to pitch against the Sox, and with good reason. Happ had always done very well against the Sox. He completely shut them down. He looked fantastic his last 2 starts in the regular season.
He's a lefty.
And he's a lefty. So
what happens in the first inning? Single, J.D. comes up. It's a screaming home run into the stands.
It was 3-0, 3 batters into the
before
game.
the Yankees even undressed their socks. And that was it.
And
Happ was out of the game in the second inning, and that was it for him in the playoffs.
Yep, and that set the tone for the whole series.
Right.
It was like, we're not going to get intimidated. You're going to throw Happ at us, fine. We'll hit him too. That's fine. We'll take care of that.
So his home run in the first inning set the tone.
So the next one we want to talk about, and this is sort of the most entertaining one of the batch, Eduardo Nunez. Now, he's known on the team, I guess, as one of the pranksters on the team. He's always chirping, half in English, half in Spanish. So nobody's quite sure what he ever says.
Yeah.
Nobody quite gets the full gist. But he had a couple games where he was the guy to watch.
Right.
The first one, he did have a pinch hit 3-run homer to put away one of the games, a pinch hit homer. But the one that sticks in everyone's mind was the marathon 18-inning game, where he essentially just became an acrobat on the field.
Not a very good acrobat.
Not a very good one. He was falling everywhere. First off, he dove into first base and nearly killed himself. And it was on the ground for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And another play, he made a catch and fell into the stands, like the Jeter play.
He dove in backwards, and that actually set up a run.
It did, because the runner smartly tagged.
The rule is when you catch the ball going to the stands, runners advance to single base. Put the guy at second base.
Yeah.
The other one, though, is he hit a foul ball.
Yes.
And it went in between his legs. And the catch, in order to get it, went in between his legs and lifted right up off the ground and flattened him on his back.
It was like the Undertaker doing a wrestling move. He just kind of completely flipped him over. And Nunez is going,
And later on in the game, there's a pop-up right to the pitcher's mound. He came running over and caught it, and it went flat. When you run uphill, when you don't realize it's uphill, you fall down. 4 times in the first 8 innings, he was splat on the ground. He was filthy. And everybody was laughing.
Everybody's laughing and saying, is he going to be okay for tomorrow? And they didn't have a choice. They were out of subs, so he couldn't put anyone in for
told him a story about one time during the season, he got hit by a pitch. They came out to see him. He said, I think I'm going to die. I think I'm going to die. And then when he went down to first base, but don't take me out.
Don't coach. I'm good.
So just as an entertaining character.
Yeah.
He did make 2 errors in the series.
He did. But he's one of the iconic people of the 18-inning game. You remember just running all over the field, being a lunatic.
Okay, number 8 is Joe Kelly. Joe Kelly had been great in the early part of the season with the Joe Kelly Fight Club, and then after the All-Star game, he went through a rough patch. He couldn't seem to make control. Couldn't locate well. But in this playoffs, he was outstanding. His stock went sky high.
And he is a free agent, so it couldn't have come at a better time.
And the signature ending of this whole playoff series, where he came in the 8th inning, Falling Price's outstanding effort. 1, 2, 3, KKK, blew him away.
And the third game in a row, I might add.
That's
That was his third straight game. And just a word about the bullpen, and while we're on talking about Kelly, this is as good a place to bring it up. The bullpen, I don't want to say I told you so, but I did, I told you so. I caught rafts of nonsense from people all year complaining about how bad the bullpen was. The beauty of a playoff roster is that you only take your 5 or 6 best relievers. So when lazy journalists like Pete Abraham and Cafardo, who probably copied Pete Abraham because he's that lazy, we're talking about the bullpen is awful. No, well, when you include Pomeranz and Scott and Cuevas and the flotsam and jetsam of the roster, it doesn't. They're coming during. It doesn't matter. They won't be in the playoffs, so they're completely irrelevant to constructing a playoff roster. The core guys in the bullpen were good all year.
Because when you came up with a bullpen ERA, like for instance, Workman pitched 1 inning in the playoffs and gave up 4 runs. So if you include his stats in, it pushes it all up.
Of course it does. Well, any good reliever, if a reliever goes 8 straight shutout innings and then gives up 5 runs in 1 inning, that's a 5 ERA, but he's a damn good pitcher still. I mean, so,
in 1 bad outing.
Right, in 1 bad outing in the 9, but that skews everything. So the bullpen had 23 save opportunities. There were 23 times a reliever came in with a 1, 2, or 3 run lead in the playoffs. They converted every one of the 23. No reliever blew a lead in the series except for Eovaldi's unearned run in the 13th inning. That's the only time they ever blew a lead in the entire playoffs. So the bullpen was just outstanding. So that's just a little side note how Kelly ties into that whole bullpen was just amazing.
Jumping into number 7, Brock Holt. Brock Holt has been a super sub for years now. Can fill in at 7 different positions if he has to, and doesn't seem to be aggravated. He's on the bench, always seen cheering or jumping up and down with Martinez. He's just a good guy. He had his signature moment for all time by being the only person ever to hit for the cycle in the postseason.
Which is ever. It's pretty amazing when you think about no one's ever done it before.
Ever done it before. And it came against the Yankees.
And his home run came off a position player. Which the Yankees roster wasn't deep enough that they could absorb a pounding like that, a 16-run loss. So they brought in, it was Austin Romine, I believe they brought in to pitch the 9th inning, and Holt crushed one off him in the 9th inning. And you remember him going around the base, he was sort of half laughing, half cheering because he couldn't believe what he just did.
Done.
And he had no idea he was the first person ever to do it. I don't think anyone realized it until it happened.
He'll be immortalized for that.
Sure,
anytime you ever talk about that, if somebody else ever does it, only Brock
Holt's done it.
So what a moment for him.
And of course, in all the postseason pictures, I'm sure you've noticed his kid has sort of become a celebrity too. His kid's adorable.
You see his picture here.
So the next one after Brock Holt would be, again, heroes come from unlikely places, Jackie Bradley Jr. Now, Bradley was the MVP of the ALCS against the Astros. He only had 3 hits the entire series. I think he has the lowest batting average of any MVP ever. He knocked in 9 runs on those 3 hits. And the biggest one to me was the double that he got with the bases loaded in Game 2. Now, the Sox had lost Game 1. They were losing 4-2 late in the second game, and the announcers and everyone else is sort of saying, oh, the Astros are going to keep this dynasty going. They won last year. Look at the Astros. Here they go. They're tough to beat. And Bradley hit one off the wall, and not only did it bounce off the wall, it bounced and rolled on the padding for a little while, too. So it was a 3-run bases clearing double to put them ahead 5-4, and they never looked back. They led the whole rest of the series.
It was funny because I was at that game, and what happened was that the ball bounced up along the padding of the left field wall, just in foul territory. There's like a little lead.
It's only about that big.
So the guy went to field it, and he was chasing it on the wall.
Right, it was rolling on the top of the wall.
Rolling on the wall. He had to chase it down. And when you were at the game, you couldn't really notice to see that. When you see the replay, it says, oh, I thought he just fumbled it or something. Like a little rat running along the wall after it.
Yeah, and then, of course, he hits a grand slam the next game, and then he hits a huge 2-run homer later on. And the game against the Dodgers doesn't go 18 innings, by the way, without his home run that he hit in the 8th inning of that game, too.
So there's the guy that that killed the Astros.
Yeah, Jackie
And then-
Bradley Jr.
And then
all
in
the
the
people.
Dodgers series, he didn't even play 2 of the games because he had to sneak Martinez in.
Right, sure. So, and like we said, in a small sample size of a 5, 6, 7 game series, unlikely heroes happen.
Well, this guy next one, Andrew Benintendi, proved to the world that he's as good a fielder as these 2 compadres out in the outfield. He made 2 outstanding, memorable plays. One against Houston where he came diving after a ball, slid on his nose, and if he had missed the ball, they would have lost the game.
Sure.
It was just a gutsy catch with Kimbrel pitching.
With Kimbrel pitching, yeah.
And the other one was the one where he made this balletic leap
Just sort of-
in Houston, which has been shown over and over, and you'll see a picture of that when
Yes.
I'm here. And it's been compared with Brishnikov.
Yes, have the 2 2s on him and everything.
I mean, he's always been regarded as a decent fielder, but Betts and Bradley are the 2 Gold Glovers.
They get the 8, but Benintendi was nominated for a Gold Glove too. He's one of the 3 finalists.
And he's proven that he's equally as good.
And to me, another impressive one was the one to end the series, that the Houston Park has this left field wall that juts out into the rest of the outfield, and he had to make a catch going around the corner of the wall and stay with it, and he sort of took it at the perfect angle to the catch, and it wouldn't have been a home run, it wouldn't have been off the wall, but it would have been a double in the last inning of the last game, and he just caught it right in
And he
stride.
also had the most runs scored and tied Martinez for the most hits.
And
just a solid player.
And he went 4 for 4 off Kershaw, a lefty, I might add. He went 4 for 4 off a lefty. So he definitely showed that he's the real deal.
But he was even sat down once.
He was, yeah. The 18-inning game, all he did was pinch hit.
That's right.
So past Andrew Benintendi is someone who's going to become, as I think it was John Henry said, he's going to become a very rich man this offseason.
Talk about a guy
Nathan
taking
Eovaldi.
advantage of the big spotlight.
Nathan Eovaldi was outstanding, not only in his 2 starts, but what he's going to be remembered for most is his relief job in Game 3 in the World Series, the 18-inning game. He'd already pitched an inning apiece in Game 1 and Game 2. Came into Game 3 and just pitched the whole rest of the game. He threw 93 pitches in relief to keep the game where it was.
To me, the only better relief pitching I can remember was Pedro came in and threw no hits against Cleveland. But those really weren't the kind of pressure pitches that pitching an extra inning is. He threw 93 pitches. Any one of those could have ended the game.
Absolutely.
Any one of them.
Any one of them. And what he did, and it was a domino effect, because this is the old lose the battle, win the war adage here. The Dodgers may have won the game in the 18th inning, but they chewed through their entire bullpen, and every single one of their guys pitched multiple innings. The next night, once Hill was taken out of the game, the Sox absolutely crushed that same crew of guys.
9 runs in 3 innings.
9 runs in 3 innings off that same crew of guys because they were pooped. They threw a ton of high leverage pitches in that game, and they were fried for the next night. And nobody except Eovaldi on the Red Sox threw more than 1 inning. So everyone was all set to go.
And Eovaldi was throwing over 100 in the 18th inning.
Yes, he was. Yep, he was still throwing over 100.
And his stock is just soaring. I think there was no question he would come back to the Sox if that hadn't happened. Now, he's going to have a lot of suitors.
Oh, he sure is. He sure is. And he also pitched a huge Game 3 in the Yankees series. You know, everyone was, the Yankees tied it in Fenway. Here we go to Yankee Stadium. He shut them down in Game 3. Completely shut them down. And that set up the whole rest of the series for the win the next night.
Of course, that was Core's strategy throughout. Use starters and relievers.
Sure did.
Without exception, they came through.
They all did. Yeah, they all did. And that's something I've seen it before in the playoffs, but he did it consistently.
Yep.
You know, we've seen aces come out, like Pedro came out, like Kershaw had come out in relief a couple times in the past, but this was every game. He was bringing in people on their throw days. Price, Sale, Eovaldi, and Porcello all came in out of the bullpen.
And before we talk about the next one, we have to give a shout out to Dave Dombrowski, who pulled 3 pieces out of the air.
Yes, he did.
Steve Pearce turned out to be the MVP of the World Series, and he wasn't on the roster at the All-Star game.
Right. They said actually
figure.
he actually, of all the World Series MVPs, he'd spent the least amount of time with his team prior to winning it, of any World Series MVP ever. So, and they got him, and talk about this is where a role player can really shine in a short series. They got him because he crushes lefties. Well, guess who who had lefties. All the teams they faced in the playoffs had lefties. And Moreland was injured. He was hobbled. He played here and there.
But he did hit a 3-run homer.
He hit a huge
So
3-run homer.
Somebody else
Yes.
could have included him.
Right. But Pierce did his job in crushing lefties, and they would hit him third or fourth because that's exactly what they expected him to do. Well, he did it. He did it. He had a fantastic play. He was their most dangerous hitter.
His second home run in the last game was like the ultimate frosting on the cake.
Oh,
You know
sure it
that?
was. Oh, but,
Wait a minute. Here's one more.
no, yeah. And it was off Baez, who everyone said would completely shut the song. Oh, no, I'm not Baez. Oh, yeah, I'll hit that off him. That's okay. Yeah.
You know, Roberts was criticized for not using Baez enough, so they brought him in the game while there was still some hope. Bam! See ya!
And his 3-run double, again, like you said, frosting on the cake, that absolutely put away that game. It was a nice tight game, and he's put it out of reach. So props to Steve Pierce. Thank you very much.
I think probably the most any pitcher has received redemption in the short series with David Price, the number 2.
Absolutely.
Unbelievable. Here's a guy who's been maligned his whole career, which has been a terrific career.
Fantastic career.
Because he's never won a postseason game. And no matter, I remember we were riding home one day this year, and he had just shut out the Orioles. And the announcers on the radio were saying, well, that's CB to AAA team, but postseason, he can't do anything.
And again, like I said, not that I'm trying to have an agenda here, but a lot of that was lazy journalism, too.
Yeah.
Price had pitched very well in some of those games that he lost in the postseason, and they didn't hit for him. I know he lost, there was a 2-1 loss, there was a 3-1 loss, there was another game. Remember this one with the Blue Jays where the manager pulled a Grady Little and he pitched 6 shutout innings and they just left him out too long.
Right.
So it was sort of 10 random games across his whole career, but that was his reputation, fairly or not.
And he lost the opening to the Yankees, so that made the wound even more sore, and then he won, and his last game was remarkable.
3 days rest.
First pitch.
Yep.
First pitch, a home run. Just, guy happened to, he probably had the book that he's going to
You probably guessed right, yeah.
From that point on, through 7 innings, he allowed a bloop hit by Puig, who celebrated the single at first base, and then Martinez somehow pulled an absolute spaz attack out of the
and totally missed a triple.
He's standing there like this, and he got to get a triple.
Lost
And then after that, he struck out the next guy and got out of that inning. So he had, and I think at one time 16 to 17 straight guys out. Remarkable performance.
He was money, and he came out. Another guy who came in out of the bullpen and just said, "I don't care, just pitch me whenever." And remember, there was a game he was warming up too, and they didn't bring him in. And if it had gone extra innings, he might have pitched in that game too.
Right.
And so this is a case where the contract is the big boondoggle with him because people think they overpaid for him. Well, I've always said from the start, if you look at his stats, Price with the Red Sox has been exactly the same starter he's been the whole rest of his career. His numbers are scary how similar they are with the Red Sox versus, Toronto or Tampa Bay or whatever. So if you think they overpaid for him, then your beef is with the office, the front office, for overpaying him. Your beef shouldn't be with Price. He didn't walk in with a gun and say, I'm only going to sign for $30 million a year. They gave him what they thought was fair market value, and he took it.
Well, they wanted to be outbid every other team.
Of course they did.
And so someone like Evaldi, there's going to be 3 or 4 teams bidding, and the one, probably the one that pays them the most.
One will overpay.
Unless he says, well, I'll give them the hometown discount.
Right. They might do that.
That's happened. But with
Price, that was his main criticism. He's not worth the money.
The thing is, when you pay $30 million a year for a guy, fans expect him to win every game in a 2-hit shutout.
Of course.
That's what they expect.
Of course.
Pay that money for sale. That's what he's going to have to be paid.
Of course.
And it isn't going to work that way.
And it's not fair to hold a player to that standard. It's really not. You're not going to pitch a 2-hit shutout every single time out. But that's what some fans expect. And whether he was maligned fairly or not, I think it was unfairly. No one right now has a bad word to say about Price. And he even and this is how some people just constantly are looking at negatives. Some people thought he was negative in his post-game interview when he talked about, you can't hold this over my shoulder anymore. I'm looking at him and saying, good for you. You deserve to be able to say that. The press was merciless to him and very unfairly so.
He said, I've got the trump card.
I've got the trump card now. I said, good for you. And you know what? I've always said this. I don't give a damn what the press thinks about you. Do your teammates like you? Yeah. That's what counts.
Right.
And by all accounts, he's a fantastic teammate. He was the first guy out of the dugout to congratulate Evaldi, even though they lost the game. Gave him a high five and a hug. He was the first one out of the dugout when they won. And
who was the first one out of the dugout when they clinched? He was leading the
Yes, he was.
charge.
Yes, he was.
He almost beat the catcher out
Yes, he
there.
did. He did. So I don't care what the press writes about him. And to me, what counts is the teammates and management like him. Great. Then he's a good person to have on the
Well,
team.
they don't like him because he's the kind of guy in interviews that doesn't talk like you learn in Bull Durham.
Right.
He doesn't say the usual baloney.
Right.
Here
to help the ball club win.
I'm going to put my pants on one leg.
Game at a time. One game at a time. Good Lord willing, we'll win
So
some
he
games.
talks about he's allergic to grass, and people freak out. Or he
Talks about his dog. He talks about
his
Astro.
dog. It's cold. My hands are tingling. So they're like, whoa, 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 look at this guy.
And to be perfectly honest, if you, from mid-February to Halloween, if you had to answer those questions every single day by trolls like Shaughnessy and Cafardo, wouldn't you get a little tired and snippy too? I would. I certainly would, so I don't blame him at all for that.
During the season, I mean, during the playoffs, when Sale was taken to the hospital, he told them that he got an infection from his
belly button ring. And people thought it was true. They thought it was true.
They're just messing with their head. There's reports, belly button ring.
Yeah, and personally, I love it when lazy reporters get called out for that. I completely am all for that. In this time of social media, how do you not dig deeper into a story like that? I mean, come on, give me a break. So Price, I don't care what they say about you. You are worth the money at this point. You know, you brought a World Series here. Hey, and he did not opt out of his contract, by the way. He will be back. So
that's right.
So welcome back, pal.
You know, I just thought of something else I don't understand. Guy hits a home run to win a game, and before he has even crossed home plate, what did you think? How much did this mean to you?
Yeah,
how much did this mean to you?
What were you thinking?
The second the guy's game is over, these people are putting stupid questions in their face, and they're all dolled up, dressed up, and he's still sweating.
And then they throw the Gatorade around, and that's the end of it.
They should ban reporters till after the whole thing.
Till the press conference afterwards. Yeah. What were you thinking? Well, what do you think I was thinking? I was trying to hit a home run.
Peter Lavasios, how much did this mean? I've always wanted to be asked that question so I could say 6. I'm dying to say that someday. It meant 6 to me. How do they answer that?
Okay, here's a little mental goose for you. Here you go.
Get original, folks. The little guy with the bow tie is sitting there. How much did this mean to you?
How much does this mean to you? I think they give classes in how to deal with the press for situations like that.
I'm sure they do. And it's obligatory. That, and the other thing I don't understand is interviewing managers during the game.
Oh my God!
During the game, he's trying to look around the guys and ask him questions to see what's happening.
Yeah.
Or they'll say, "Hap just get knocked out of the game." How much did that mean to you?
Yeah. Well, and the manager's not going to say, "Well, he sucked." I mean, what do you think he's going to say? Well, he had a rough night. I mean, what do you expect other than a stock answer? I really don't understand that.
They try not to say anything that's going to get them in trouble.
Of course not.
If they do,
of course not. Oh, well, another moment that we didn't talk about. How about Cora getting thrown out of the playoff game arguing balls and strikes? So what do you think he's going to say when they ask him about that? He's not going to say, well, the umpire sucked. He's going to say, I lost my mind for a little bit there, whatever.
Well, it was a terrible call.
The whole, by the way, there were 2 instances, Kerwin Daly and I forget the other one. The home plate umpiring was horrible in 2 games. By the way, and the best umpiring job maybe I've ever seen, give him credit, Joe West. Joe West was fantastic the night he had home plate.
When that controversial call came up, he made it.
Yep.
He was very assured of it. He didn't hesitate or call people in.
Yep, he said, okay, out.
Interference, out.
Yep, and his performance behind home plate, that game behind home plate was masterful. He was fantastic.
What would led into Cora being thrown out is the announcers on TV said that pitch missed by 6-8 inches.
Right.
They were calling it.
Right, yeah, they
were calling the umpire out.
Right.
And Ben Intendi, who usually is pretty mild-mannered,
he said, come on.
Fired his bat down, fired his hat.
It was a horrible call.
So partly Cora comes out to protect his player, but he probably said a few nasty things.
Well, and the magic word, if you've seen Bull Durham, was probably used.
I think there's 4 or 5 nasty words.
Oh, I think
you have to have Spanish nasty words.
Oh, that's right. That's true. Yes, you have to be bilingual now.
That's right.
And I think part of it was,
cool if they had subtitles for that.
That'd be great. Oh, well, we've gotten pretty good at lip reading over the years, so you can tell a lot of the time. But anyway, on to the top one. the number one reason why the Red Sox were successful, we just talked about him, was Alex Cora. Every single move that he made was the right one except for one, and he admitted it that he left Erod in too long in the World Series game. That's a legitimate beat, and he owned it. I'm okay with a mistake if you own it, but every single thing that he did, especially his handling of the bullpen, was just masterful. Masterful.
Unbelievable. The pinch hitters worked out. The lineups he set up worked out. The orders he did, the ways he used the catchers in different games.
Yep.
Leon had 3 hits.
He did.
Which was more than he had in September.
Right, yes. He had 3 hits.
Literally more than he had in September.
He was 3 for 6 in the playoffs. Yeah. And well, bringing up Leon, this is another case of a catcher is more than his offense. The first game against the Yankees was just a master's class in catcher's defense.
Right. Yep.
Any one of those balls in the dirt gets by him, that's a tie game. And he blocked everything. And you watch him versus someone like Sanchez or Grandal, who are just hopeless behind the plate. It makes you appreciate having a good defensive catcher.
They complain about how our catchers did overall in the season. There are no good catchers out there.
No, I was just going to say that. Somebody made a complaint in the group that I'm in. Oh, we need a catcher who will hit 275 or so. Guess how many there were in all of the majors that hit 275? 3. One of them was Buster Posey, who hit 5 homers with that average. One was Wilson Ramos, who was a total outlier from the rest of his career. And one was Real Muto, who's probably the best catcher in the majors right now. That's it. Good hitting catchers don't exist right now.
That's out of 30 teams now.
Out of 30 teams, 3 catchers at 275. So guess what? The Sox were still first in the majors in runs scored. So it didn't hurt their lineup at all not having a good hitting catcher, did it? So
no, I think that he just handled everything, and he handled the press well.
Yes,
he handled everything all along the way. I think his clubhouse whole demeanor was great. They all like him. They all call him AC.
AC, yeah. AC. And they talked about, and they were very open about how different that was from when Farrell ran the team last year. Farrell had completely lost the team, and they were miserable because the clubhouse had become kind of toxic from his leadership. This was a complete change, and it was from day one. Yep. They were talking about in spring training, he took each player out to dinner during spring training and said, okay, what do you want to change about the team? What was a problem? What do you want going forward? And he took all that feedback and used it in a positive way to make the team better. And he rested guys. And I know he got flack for that at some points during the year. He always looked big picture. As he said, he learned from Terry Francona, don't chase wins. Okay, you may lose this game, so what? Look at the bigger picture and lose the battle, win the war.
And he chased 108 wins.
Chased 108 wins.
What I really admire him for, though, he made one request to ownership. I want to take the World Series trophy to Puerto Rico.
Yes. Yeah.
What a nice gesture that was. Oh
and they announced the players are going too. Yeah. It's Holt and Erod and Nunez and somebody else. 4 players are going to Puerto Rico with him with the trophy. So it's terrific. And he is the first Puerto Rican manager to win a World Series. Right. He is. Right. He's the first one. So just from day one, when it comes to a manager, you can nitpick individual moves here and there, and a lot of that isn't the manager. It's your philosophy doesn't jive with something that's happening. But you have to look at the big picture. There are not many times this year at all where Cora stepped wrong or you could question much of anything.
It's interesting they make all the postseason awards are voted for after the regular season ends.
Right.
I'll bet he's not in the top 3 of best managers.
No, it'll be either Cash or from Tampa Bay or Melvin from Oakland. Those will be 1, 2.
Or maybe the guy from Milwaukee.
Yeah, right. Yeah, maybe. Sure.
But how can he do a better job than he did? What can you possibly do?
No, that you win 2/3 of the game in the regular season and then go 11-3 in the playoffs. I mean, how do you do better than that?
Just a sidebar. I meant to talk about the last couple of seasons. Last couple of seasons. The phrase "Yankees suck." I've heard people say it's terrible. We say Yankees suck. Couldn't cry it out. Yankees suck means we admire the Yankees.
Yes, it does.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
It's a way of saying, it's a way of being derogatory, but you only say it because you're afraid of them or they're good.
It's actually a respectful derogatory term.
You never say Padres suck.
Because they do.
Orioles suck.
No.
You only say that term. It's a little bit extreme maybe. When people start chanting it, it's because maybe we've gotten the lead on them because we are proud of the fact that we're able to beat a good team.
Absolutely. And you know what? You really have to dig around to find Yankees that are hateable. Right now, I'm going to completely admit that. There are not many, other than Brett Gardner, who everybody hates.
Well,
there aren't too many Yankees you can hate right now.
Maybe Stanton.
Okay, maybe Stanton, yeah. But, I mean, does anybody hate Aaron Judge? I mean, no, of course not. I like Judge, too. I think
He had the highest average in postseason.
He did, yeah. He's the
Please come play with us.
yeah, I'll take him in a second. So, nobody ever complains about Gregorius. I mean, really. So
the kids they added.
Right. So it's actually a respectful term, saying, okay, this is our best competition here. Okay, we're ahead of them right now. Let's enjoy it.
Chanting that forever, and it's because we respect them.
Of course.
And I don't think a lot of people ever thought of it that way. A couple of my friends at a game were furious that we were chanting that chant, but it's a kind of a Yahoo way of saying you're good.
Yes, it is. It really is. And they're going to be good for years to come, too, because they have a good young core. So.
And you notice in our picks, we did not mention Mookie, Sale, or Bogarts. Ironically, Sale was protected all season.
Yes, he was.
And we never got to use him much because he wasn't feeling well.
Yeah. So it was a complete team effort. Everybody on the roster contributed at some point, which is what you need to win a championship, I think. I mean, there have been some cases, I think back, I remember one of the first World Series, I remember Oral Hershiser carrying the Dodgers to a World Series. And it does happen sometimes.
Bob Gibson, sure.
Or even Pedro carrying the Sox through a playoff round. But this was a complete team effort. And you don't get to 108 wins by one or two guys carrying
119.
119 wins
Third most
overall.
all time. Third most all time.
And actually, they were talking about where does this team fit in the all-time teams. And I saw a breakdown, and it had them actually ranked third since World War II. They said the 70 Orioles and the 98 Yankees were the only two teams that came out ahead of this team in terms of overall just blowing everyone away.
The 98 Yankees and the 2001 Mariners won more total games.
Yes,
but the Mariners didn't.
The Mariners didn't make it to the World Series.
Fantastic.
By the way, a little side note, not really a trivia. The only other team in history who took out 200-win teams to get to the World Series, believe it or not, was the 98 Padres. They beat the Braves and the Astros, both who won 100 games, to get to that 98 Yankee team, and won 114 games. Talk about running the gauntlet in your postseason.
But they didn't win the
World Series. They're the only other team that took out 200-win teams to get there, which, again, is a testament to how good this Red Sox team was. It wasn't like they were far and away just and blew everybody up. Those were good teams they took out.
That's right.
They were
very good.
I mean, the Astros had won the World Series. They won 103 games this year. That's a fantastic team that they beat.
The Vegas odds were they were the fifth in line to win.
Yes. Astros were 1 and Yankees were 2, I think. I think they were the top 2. Maybe the Dodgers got in there.
Dodgers too.
But,
well, one thing about keeping the team together is that 6 of them are free agents next year.
You got to break up the band a little bit.
Kimbrel, Kelly, Evaldi, Kinsler, Pomerantz, and Pierce. Pomerantz is history.
I think so.
He was on the roster for the World Series. Never even got.
I think that was a break glass in case of emergency if Sale wasn't healthy. I think that's why they had him there.
He would have come in the 18th inning.
Right.
Not 22.
But that was it.
So he's gone. I don't think they'll pick up Kinsler.
No, I think
they're hoping that Petey can come back next year. That's not a given, but they're hoping that. And I think Kimbrel is definitely history. They gave him a, what do you call it?
Qualifying offer. Which means if he turns down the offer, they get a draft pick.
I think it was $16.7 million.
It was something like that, yes. And if he takes it, it's for 1 year, but if he turns it down and he signs somewhere else, the Sox get a draft pick. And that happens with every free agent. You always make a qualifying offer to get the draft pick.
I would think they're very, very likely, I think at least, to sign Pierce.
I think so, too.
Pierce has played around the mid. He's 35. I don't think too many teams are going to offer him a long-term contract.
And he has a perfect spot on this team.
That's right.
It's an absolutely perfect situation for him. He's not going to be an everyday guy, but he'll be a 4 times a week guy who crushes
I'll bet they'd sign him for 2 years.
I think so, too.
Similar to what they gave Moreland.
Exactly. I was just going to say that. Just like
Moreland for 1 more year.
Right. And hopefully Moreland can stay healthy, which he hasn't been able to the last couple of years.
I would think Kelly would like to stay.
I hope so.
Probably not 2 big bucks.
No. I hope so.
And Evaldi,
of all these going to go to the highest bidder.
And
So-
it's only because of one game.
Right, all because of one game. But I think, like we were saying before, I think somebody like the Brewers, who are really hard up there, like one starter away from having a really good team, they'll want Evaldi. Somebody like that.
You have to
will
remember,
overpay
he's
for him.
coming off 2 Tommy John surgeries.
Yes.
And he's no spring chicken.
So,
But
well,
you still can throw 111
sure
miles
can.
an hour.
Yeah. So, speaking of bringing it full circle back to the bullpen, here's our trivia question answer before we go any further. So the only Red Sox pitcher who didn't allow a run in the playoffs was Heath Hembry. He went 4 2/3 shutout innings. Again, going to show just how deep that Red Sox bullpen was during the playoffs. He wasn't even going to be on the roster. He was only there because Wright couldn't go, so they took him in Wright's spot.
Probably the lightest regarded of all the...
Yeah, and he comes in.
That's just such an example of, in the playoffs or short series, anybody can be a superstar.
Anybody can be a hero.
Can be a hero.
Absolutely.
Heath Hembry.
Yep, Heath Hembry was the only one. So remember that for next time. So
This is our last regular show of the year, and we thought we would end this with a little poetry in a way.
little poetry is, and it's similar to what you might have heard. Joe Castiglione ends every season with a little bit of poetry too. So we're going to follow in his footsteps.
We had a baseball commissioner for a short time who was one of the most articulate men of all of baseball. That's brilliant things to say, insightful, sentimental, and I think it's really touching. So I'd like to read you what he had to say about the end of a baseball season.
Bart Giamatti, who sadly passed away in office.
And then Jason, on his own website, wrote something personal about the end of the season, and I'd like you to hear it. Baseball. It breaks your heart. It is designed to break your heart. The game begins in the spring, when everything else begins again, and it blossoms in the summer, filling the afternoons and evenings. And as soon as the chill rains come, it stops and leaves you to face the fall alone. You count on it, rely on it to buffer the passage of time, to keep the memory of sunshine and high skies alive. And then just when the days are all twilight, when you need it the most, it stops. Today, a Sunday of rain and broken branches and leaf-clogged drains and slick streets, it stopped, and summer was gone. Of course, there are those who learn after the first few times. They grow out of sports. And there are those with the wisdom to know that nothing lasts. These are the truly tough among us, the ones who can live without illusion, without even the hope of illusion. I'm not that grown up or up to date. I'm a simpler creature, tied to more primitive patterns and cycles. I need to think that something lasts forever, and it might as well be that state of being that is a game. It might as well be that, in a green field, in the sun.
And the act of following a baseball team tends to focus, understandably, on win-loss columns and box scores and stats. But the very presence of the game leaves concentric ripples that expand into our daily lives, becoming a state of existence. We watch because we like baseball. We watch for the strategy and the matchups and the players and their feats and a diving catch and a runner rounding second as he's legging out a triple or a filthy breaking pitch on the black of the plate. We watch because the game has carefree associations for us. Summer days and nights, an Italian sausage from a street vendor, a cold beer, its leisurely pace, the joy of finding a fellow fan whose knowledge equals yours, memories of our childhoods, and how we were introduced to the sport and who taught it to us. And we watch because the uniforms have the name of our city stitched across the front. We share in the highs and lows together, and their achievement is ours. That providing a bond and a civic purpose that's just profoundly unifying. It's the embroidered red lettering on the jersey, the raised B on the cap. A Sox fan is family, and you're all in this together. And while the Red Sox have won their 4th World Series in 15 years, it's a remarkable baseball achievement. But what will linger long after the ballpark lights have dimmed is that connection with fellow fans through the generations. Catching a game at Fenway with family and friends, our faces splashed by the same sun that splashed the faces of our parents and grandparents, our throats hoarsened by chants, our fists raised by victories. My 5-year-old son, who's usually exhausted by 8 o'clock, gamely made it through all 9 innings of Game 5 in the World Series. And even he knew at 5 years old that there was an energy as game time approached, almost an electricity, and damned if he was going to bed and missing out. And I thought back to the 1986 playoffs when I was allowed to stay up later than any 10-year-old had a right to. And I just held them close as the outs, in a game that's not beholden to a clock, the outs provided a countdown to the championship. And as technology advances, so does our kinship with fans thousands of miles away, fingers flying as texts are sent back and forth, and social media thoughts about the team's exploits are posted, providing instant interaction with Red Sox Nation members around the world and experiencing the moment as one. Concentric circles. Living is not a zero-sum game. We're all pieces of a larger puzzle. Enjoy the ride.
I think that's beautiful. See you all.
Take care.
Thank you for watching another outstanding program provided to you by Lunenburg Public Access. We're here to serve the community. Lunenburg Public Access is always looking for volunteers to help record town events, high school sports, and town meetings. Please consider helping us out today. To contact us, you can call 617-763-3018 or email us at lunenburgaccess@gmail.com.